Hey, sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown live show coming at you as always on a Monday morning, Monday afternoon, whatever it is for you. And as always, I'm joined by Andrew Combo Salop to discuss the latest and the greatest in the NBA. Combo, what's happening, my man?
All is well, bro. Lots of work. What's up with that alternative video angle you just had? It looked pretty cool. Looked very morning sports AM live show look.
I don't even know what you're talking about. All I know is I took off the screen share and we were not on the stage for no.
Oh, sometimes when we bring a third guest, it's like three different lines of.
Oh
us.
yeah.
But
sorry, I had to press this button. Wait.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Now my mouse isn't working. You ever have that where it like lags? That's crazy. Okay, like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. We're two in everyone's face now, aren't we?
No. People like us.
Yeah.
No, this is cool too.
But you know what people also like? So if you're listening to this on the podcast, they might have any idea what we're talking about. So let's get into the parts that they can understand and follow along with via audio. But thanks everyone for being out there. Great to see people out there already, and great to be back on Twitter. That was a little screwy. I don't know if it was the last time, but the time before that where Twitter was down. But here we are. And lots to talk about. What do you want to talk about? We talk about James Harden. We talk about Cade Cunningham and what's going on there. Maybe we should start with that because we had some fireworks on Saturday night with the game between the Thunder and the Pistons. And I don't think we're ever going to stop having complaints about SGA, are we?
But what's the complaint?
You know, that he's grifting, he's foul baiting, whatever that's called.
He's not like one of the biggest floppers to be.
Yeah, you know what's funny is that someone was complaining on Twitter just now about a Luka play where, and you look at it, the guy just runs into him. Okay, now as he's running into him, he pulls up because he's realizing that this guy isn't going to stop. He's going to run into me. It has to be a foul. I'm going to get free throws. But then he complains about the flail, quote unquote flail. And you watch what Luka does, and he literally goes up. He's in the air. He's getting bumped. He kind of just staggers a couple steps and then is done. Flail to me is, probably a lot closer to what we saw Isaiah Joe do against the Celtics when his feet kind of start to splay way wide on the way down. And that's, all his limbs all out and everywhere. Now we're into a weird non-reality where you're getting people angry at things that simply aren't happening. And that's what's really confusing to me because I'm watching this going, I think we need to redefine what flail is to the guy who was talking to me about it because this is not a flail. He just kind of steps and steps and then he's done and then doesn't complain, doesn't anything. He just goes to the line. So what do we make of that?
I didn't think it was a flail. I think life has been a simulation since 2020. Everything seems a little bit crazy, Coach Nick.
That's interesting. Okay. There are a lot of people.
Look, Dallas just traded Luka Doncic. I mean, what's going on?
It's a strange timeline we're on. And the reality gets warped. It's very, very strange. But also everyone in the chat, what's up, Costa, Playboy? And don't forget, if you want your questions answered, the best way to do that is in the super chat on the YouTube side. So head over there and you'll really help us keep the show going. We really appreciate it.
I'll ask you this, Coach Nick. What do you feel about Cade Cunningham as a basketball player from going through his video?
Okay. Well, did we have this discussion privately before? I can't remember.
Yeah, because we totally disagree on what we're seeing. So it's a good thing to talk about.
Okay, good. All right. Well, okay. Well, I can't remember if we did this before, but I'm going to do the video today that's centered on what happened on Saturday, but then get into Cade's game and the Pistons resurgence, which is exciting. Do we do this before? Where is he ranked? What number player is he ranked in the NBA?
Well, I think right now, when you're looking at MVPs, I think he's top 5.
I'm sorry. Who are we talking about?
Cade Cunningham.
You want to put Cade Cunningham in the top 5 of the MVP race?
Yeah.
Why?
Because he's of that mold, like Luka Doncic, LeBron James, even though he's not as good as them. He does everything for that team. A good Pistons team. He had very good stats last year on a bad team, and everybody said it was his fault. But since college, he just hasn't had the right pieces around him. Now we're seeing he's putting great stats on a very good team and that he could play winning basketball. He's always played winning basketball. This is just the first year with Malik Beasley and Tobias Harris, who aren't, great players. He's uplifting them, that this Pistons team totally turned things around with Cade Cunningham. And obviously JB Bickerstaff has something to do with that. But, I mean, he's just that mold of a guy you want to build your franchise around. I know you said his mid-range needs work, but to me, when I'm watching, he's a 3-level scorer, makes everybody around him better, plays both sides of the floor. You know, unlike a Brunson, that was part of my thing when comparing him and Brunson, who's better. He's not a liability on defense. I think he's a great player and a future all-star, future superstar.
You know, the funny thing is, I kind of feel like I got to quickly check the numbers, but my impression right now is that it's his mid-range is his best part of his game.
Okay, good for him then. I remember you telling me on our conversation that he needs to work on the mid-range. That's why I said that.
No, I think what I was my memory of what I wanted to say was his.
Yeah, that's the only reason he addressed that. I look at him as a 3-level scorer. Like,
yeah. I don't like his finishing at the rim.
Well, I mean, he got nice spin moves. He got that jab step, rocker step to the rim. Like, he bullies people to the rim. So I didn't look at the numbers as closely as you, but just watching him play, it looks good to the rim to me.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and there's numbers. I don't even know if it's worth getting out right now, but there's a finishing thing that drives me nuts in terms of like I mean, and there's levels here. If you're going to compare him to those guys, he's not at that level. He's not there.
What level is he?
He's like, I would say he's at least the next tier down, at least. So you're talking about
well, that's pretty good because that's a difference from our conversation. I feel like a few weeks ago.
Okay,
that just one tier down from like a Luka LeBron.
Well,
like,
okay, I mean,
that's still very good.
But I don't know. In reality, I would probably put him like 15th, honestly, which is really good.
Yeah, I mean, that's still good.
Yeah. But also the decision making and the turnovers are a little bit confounding to me.
He has to do everything for that team.
I know, but it's still not. Decisions are, every game I'm going through now, I'm just like, I'm just wondering, like, when is he going to make another leap? And he's in his 4th year, so he's getting that point now where we're getting to be what we have. Like, he's not going to get that much better, is he?
I mean, he's always been great to me. That's the thing. Like, best player in college basketball. I felt like he was always great in the NBA. Just he had a terrible team around him. Team gets better. He proves he's a winning player. That's how I look at it.
I mean, I see all that and I felt all that, but when I really started doing a deep dive, I all of a sudden it kind of was hitting me that he's not there yet. He's not in that tier of like being in the MVP conversation. Like, I don't think that he's.
How about this? You put him on the Knicks instead of Brunson. I mean, I think they're very legit.
Maybe. I don't know. It doesn't really.
Think about who the second best player is on that team. I mean, they're not going to contend just because of that. It's not. I think Cade's good enough.
Yeah, I don't know. The jury is out for me right now. I do see, obviously he's scoring like 25 a game and he's doing well and he's leading this team and they're having resurgence, so that's great. But if they want to get anything beyond the first round, he needs to play better, regardless of the fact that like they've improved around him a little bit here and there. And there's some more roster moves. I think THJ's contract is up. I don't know if he'll be brought back. And they can upgrade at least a couple more positions, so that will all help. But by year 5 at age 20, what is he now, 23 right now, 24, he's 23, so it is now the time where like I just worry. I feel like I mean, and here's this opportunity like to have a breakout playoff series, right, and show us. If you ask me what the likelihood of that would be, where he would really dominate and show us like he's ready for the next step, as of what I'm seeing right now, I don't know. I think I'd give you a 50-50 shot at it, maybe.
Well, the thing is, they might match up with the Knicks, and he went into the Garden twice and beat the Knicks this year. So okay. I think it could happen against the Knicks, and that's with a healthy Brunson. So, Brunson might be coming off his ankle injury. Yeah. He will be coming off an ankle injury, so it'll be interesting to see if that's the series.
Okay, yeah. I mean, again, I don't necessarily dislike Cade, but like when we're trying to put him into a level that I don't think he's at, and I think there's a lot more work he needs to get done. And it's probably okay for him that he's toiling a little bit in obscurity in a smaller market, and they had been losing all this time, so there wasn't a lot of pressure on it. And so now that it's starting to ramp up, and we're going to start scrutinizing it more, it's time to figure these things out. So he's got to be able to. His turnovers on drop of drives are really a problem. And I got to check. I don't know if it's even like a sheer volume thing. It's just like method. Yeah, I mean, he's turning it over 4.5 times a game, which is, in line with a lot of the guys who are heavy ball handlers. But some of these are ones of the kind you don't see Luka make. You don't see, I mean, like the argument would have to be like Banchero, like that level. And Banchero was kind of getting there too, having been off for that while with being hurt. But he might. Cade had to be careful. Like Banchero could easily surpass him by next year too.
I don't think so.
You don't think it's close right now?
No, I think Cade's more of a winning player.
Oh, okay. Now we're talking about like skill and whatever impact, but I suppose impact is.
Yeah, I like guys like who have great feel for basketball, who read the game well, passers, those type of players.
You don't think you're describing Banchero in those words?
Way closer to the description of Cade from what I just said.
Okay.
I mean, Cade is clearly more of the point guardish type player, the player that puts players in position, makes great passes. Banchero is more of an ISO scorer than Cade ever will be.
I don't think that Cade is making those great passes. I think that's one of my issues.
I mean, his assist numbers are good. I mean, his team's winning. He's the guy with the basketball in his hands all the time.
Yeah, when you have your hands of the basketball all the time, then you get assists. But well,
I mean, he's getting assists and winning, and he's the guy. He's their point guard essentially. He's their point guard.
Right. No, yeah. I mean he is. I don't know. Right now, passing is a real problem for me. I'm watching.
You think Banchero is a better passer than Cade?
Well, Banchero certainly has that feel, and it won't match in volume because he doesn't have the same ball handling responsibility.
Banchero is good, but I think if we did a poll, who has better feel for basketball, it would be like 95% Cade over Banchero.
Wow, I don't know if it'd be 95. That seems awfully high. But by the way, my next stop, I suppose, is to do another deep dive for this year with Banchero. It's been a minute since I've really gone into his.
Banchero is more of the Carmelo Anthony mold. Not that he's as good, and I feel like Cade is more of the LeBron Luka mold, like just a better passer, better feel for basketball.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel that right now. I feel like he's ahead. He's a lot of the balls in his hand a lot, so he's going to be making those passes that end up in shots. I don't know. It's just.
I mean, he's making the passes that are ending up in shots with players that aren't that good, leading them to win games.
I mean, fair enough. Like if you have to throw it to Duran and Duran's hands are a little bit shaky some of the time, he doesn't handle the ball well. But
he's not the savant like Luka or Trae Young. I'm not saying that, but he's definitely better passer than Paulo.
Yeah. So I mean, it's interesting. Oh, and by the way, it looks like I just got a text from Chip, the referee Chip. He might want to jump on here to talk a little bit more about what happened in this game because I have some takes because everyone was I think everyone was kind of up in arms about what was going on, and I'm sure it'll just be part of the segment where we're going to talk today about the refereeing in general and what this means because I'm the guy everyone likes to think is some sort of apologist for the referees when all I'm doing is trying to show you what the rules are. And it's funny because I get a lot of the hate for it, and it's like, all right, well, what sounds like you're mad about is the actual rule. So if you want to change the rule, that's great. But why are you getting mad at me?
Because, do you feel that the way refs interpret the rules is like the NBA is entertainment at the end of the day, right? So they're not going to call every travel,
Well, okay, and I mean, the travel. Okay, that's the question. Are they mad about the travels as much these days, or more about the fouls?
I don't know what they're mad about. What I'm saying is, it's like. The refs aren't going to catch every single thing.
Right.
So if somebody like everybody's always traveling, I mean, you wouldn't be able to play.
Yeah. And I think at this point it's morphed from traveling. If we're going to get specific on what we're talking about here, it's now gotten to I think the foul baiting is the big one right now. And then they feel like these players are being rewarded for, doing unnatural basketball moves. It seems to be some phrase that people have now glammed onto. Unnatural basketball phrase, when it's like, all I'm seeing is simply a guy who can do things that ordinary people can't do, which is pull up into a jump shot very quickly at any split second they want to. It's not easy to do, right? You have to have a feel and you have to be able to float the dribble and all sorts of different things and react quicker than anybody else in the world to know that. And ahead of time, knowing Luka did that pull-up that somebody was sharing, he sensed it. Like he knew that I was running into him way before it even happened. So,
yeah.
So there's an anger. I don't know. Maybe you're not on Twitter enough. There's a distinct anger and it's getting to be out of control now for those kind of plays. And I think that if we could take AI and just erase the defender and you watch what the offensive player is doing, so much of the time he's not getting out of his cylinder, he's not leaning in as much, he's just quick pulling, and then the defender runs into him, and so there isn't a choice.
Trae Young special
in a lot of it.
Trae Young special. He used to do that a lot.
Yeah. Trae Young. It's, and there's not a lot of guys who are doing it because it is a really hard skill. So you have the 5 or 6 guys, but people want to like tear down the entire NBA saying this game is washed. It's over. I'm not watching it anymore. And, you're really talking about like one play each game or so, maybe 2 plays for SGA. And SGA I think is pretty ethical. I don't see him getting his arms out in the way and leaning in as much. He's just pulling. And by the way, SGA is that good. Every game I watch with him, every game, SGA continues to amaze me with the shot making he can do. And that's nothing about baiting fouls or whatever. He's that hard to guard. And so they start putting their hands all over him because they must assume there's no other way to do it. And then that's when he starts to pull and their hands are touching him on the chest, and then whacking him across the arms. It's really frustrating when, I'm trying to talk people down off the ledge and like they've already made up their mind. They're not going to, it's like there's no reasoning here. There's no video evidence that can compel anybody. And it's just very, very strange. But let's get to the Pistons game because we had some interesting stuff happen there. I didn't prep any video, but you always said, where there's an audio thing too. But essentially, if you saw what happened, we had Cade Cunningham drive. And we'll bring Chip in right now. What's up, Chip?
Hey, guys. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
What's up, man?
All right. Well, if you don't know, Chip is a referee at the college level and is one of our go-to guys to give us the real, insight in what's happening on the court. So I'll just really quickly set it up because people might not have seen the Pistons OKC game, which got very contentious in the third quarter. And so Cade drives, Dort, who's guarding him, goes down really awkwardly and is grabbing his midsection on the ground, writhing in pain. And then there's a loose ball foul at the end of the play several seconds later. And then all of a sudden the referee says, wait, I got to review this for a hostile act. I guess because Dort had gone down and was down for so long, he's like, maybe something happened here that I didn't see. And so they do the review and then they realize no hostile act. And then it's just a regular loose ball foul. So Chip, weigh in as far as I covered there. Is there anything else I'm missing so far?
No, you got it so far. So I took a look at the play, and granted, this is in a vacuum. I know everybody talking about this game is going to say, hey, you got to watch the whole game to see how it was officiated up to this point and see why there's frustration. But let's just talk about this play in a vacuum. Okay, so on the drive to the basket, Dort goes down. He does like a split. He's holding his midsection. Anytime a player is holding their midsection like that and down for an extended period of time, they're going to review it for a hostile act just in case.
Oh, okay.
If they're holding their midsection. But we also have this compounded by a loose ball foul called on Stewart as well, which I saw your discussion with a couple people on X about this, on Twitter about this. And so kind of bringing this part of it up, I want to just kind of reiterate something during rebounding action. And we'll set the stage first by saying the loose ball foul was called on Stewart. Then they review for a hostile act. They see that there is no hostile act. There was foot-to-foot contact with his teammate that caused Dort to do a split and kind of pull his groin a little bit, and that's why he was down on the ground. So no hostile act. They stick with the loose ball foul on Stewart, though. Now, here's what we look for during rebounding action. All right, so you've got two guys kind of tied up, right? And you can look at it through the lens of this, too. I know a lot of people don't like the L2M report or whatever, but in every L2M report, when you look at every play, what do they always say? If they say there's a foul, they grade the decision, either correct, no call, incorrect, incorrect call, correct call. And then they say disadvantaged player, right? Mm-hmm. And then they list the player who was fouled. Disadvantaged is the key word, all right? So you have Williams kind of with his arm around Stewart during that rebounding action. For those of you that have seen the play, you've seen that part, right? And he's holding the jersey, Stewart's jersey on the backside. At that point, nobody is trying to get to the rebound because it hasn't come off the rim yet. So we do not have a foul yet. So that in and of itself, him grabbing the jersey, nobody's moving. So he's not hindering anybody's freedom of movement or anything like that. So we don't have a disadvantaged player yet. Nobody's put it at a disadvantage by him having his arm there and grabbing the back of the jersey. The disadvantage part comes in where Stewart then slings Williams out of the play in order to be able to go get the rebound. That's a loose ball foul because he is now then disadvantaged Williams as he slings him aside to go get the rebound. And he is able to be the first person to touch that ball off the rebound. And that's why a foul is going to be called on that. Now, there was another question that I know I saw a couple of people say about that play. Like even after all the technicals, happened right after that, we had multiple technicals. Yeah, let's go back and look at this play so you can see what I'm saying. All right, so you see him grab the jersey. All right, at that point, the foul has already occurred. Okay, because Stewart is getting his jersey grabbed on the backside, but nobody's trying to move to go anywhere. There's no freedom of movement foul there. All right, so he's got his hand on his waist right here. All right, Williams does. Then as the ball comes off the rim, you're going to say you can see Stewart starting to grab him around the chest now and starting to sling him while he's getting his jersey grabbed on the backside. The disadvantaged player in this scenario is Williams. Stewart is the one committing the loose ball foul in this situation. Even despite this jersey grab here, the foul has already occurred.
Mm-hmm.
Loose ball foul. And
yeah,
that's
what the point I was trying to make to somebody else, where the most overt part of the screen of the grabbing the jersey, which would be a foul, is way after Stewart has just lodged him and pushed him out of the way. So it doesn't really matter if he's pulling it on this way. I mean, as long as the ref sees that push. Now, right. The other thing I would say is, I think you were kind of even saying this too, is that in the very beginning of this part, we can't quite see. I don't think we ever got a different angle of this, where Williams has a left hand on the jersey, like in a behind his back. So I don't think he's going to be able to get an advantage, right? Like that way, when your arm is behind you like that. And, a lot of times when you're pulling, it's in front of you and you can get guys out of the way. So the referee either didn't see it because he's shielded or she's shielded. And then there's no advantage.
Even if you see that, that's not a foul in and of itself, because it did not disadvantage Stewart at all. So even if he was grabbing before Stewart slings him out of the play, even if he was grabbing that jersey, that in and of itself did not disadvantage Stewart at all. Stewart is the one who disadvantaged Williams by slinging him out of the play.
For sure.
Does that make sense? Now, even that initial grab by Williams, all right, before he got slung out of the play, that did not disadvantage Stewart at all from getting to the rebound. Okay. The ball wasn't even off the rim yet. That was happening. And then he slung him out of the way. And that's where the foul occurs. Mm-hmm. Then you have the technical fouls right after that. Okay. And so unlike high school or college, you don't shoot them in the order of which they occur, the free throws. You get all the single free throw technical shots out of the way first, and then you go back to the loose ball foul. Now, a guy that was arguing with you on Twitter about this tried to make the argument that they still adjudicated it incorrectly, even with all that we just talked about. No hostile act, which there wasn't one. Loose ball foul by Stewart, which there was one. We can argue about whether or not and discuss whether or not the technical fouls were warranted, which I haven't seen all of them, but I believe they probably were, because I believe they were upset with the way the game was officiated based on his comments after the game. But then what happens there is that's the second team foul in the last 2 minutes of the third period. So even if you haven't reached your quota of 4 personal team fouls to put them into the penalty to shoot free throws in the first 10 minutes of the quarter, on the second team foul in the last 2 minutes of each period, then you will be shooting penalty free throws on the other end. So that is why he was still awarded those 2 free throws for that foul by Stewart. Williams is going to be shooting those 2 free throws at the end of all the technical foul free throws that were adjudicated. And so.
Oh, well, hang on. I'm sorry, because maybe you didn't see it very closely, because the reason why he got a technical foul, Cade Cunningham did, is because they gave him the ball, Williams, who was shooting the free throw with nobody on the line. So for a very brief second, it looked like, it was a technical when it wasn't, right? So the was like, yeah, come on, everybody, line up, right?
Oh.
So big deal, right? Whatever. But Cade drops the F-bomb on him to say, well, you just F this whole thing up or something like that. And he kind of turned away from the ref to say it. But he got heard it, and I think it picked up on the mic too. We could pretty much hear him say it.
Oh,
and
really?
At that point, it was like, he had enough, because I'm sure they've been chirping the whole game. It's really whatever. Mm-hmm. And so for him to be like, instead of saying, "Oh, cool, thanks for correcting that, ref," he was like, "You're already screwing all this up, and you F that up too, whatever." So bam, they got him. And then I don't think he necessarily understood that. Because then, so correct me if I'm wrong here. Once they call a tech while the guy was lined up for a regular free throws, then they're going to clear it out and let them shoot a free technical foul, right?
Yes, because you basically resume play with the last thing that had occurred in live ball play. So in that situation, it would be the free throws, like point of interruption is what we're talking about here. So you had to resume play with the bonus free throw or the penalty free throws after all the technical fouls have been adjudicated,
right,
and penalized. So yes, you're right. Even though they had lined it up. And that's an interesting situation, because when you've got that many technical fouls, it would be easy to think, hey, we still got another technical foul free throw to shoot. and then you realize your mistake, you get everybody lined back up, but then you have another technical foul, so you back them all up again. You let any player or eligible team member attempt that free throw for the offended team for the technical foul, and then you line everybody back up and let Williams shoot his 2 penalty free throws.
And it was very strange because they cut away from this. I almost had to check to see the other feed, but I think that after he says, why aren't we lining up, and you got to F this up, I don't know if Cade Cunningham understood that he got that first tech, because then when they clear everybody off, he's now back in Forte's face going, what's going on, whatever. He's arguing that technical foul.
And
right?
that's when he gets the second.
The other one. I'm sure he was saying some stuff too. And, man, it's rough because, and it was funny because I was talking with someone who covers the team. Did you see the press conference where JB Bickerstaff is banging the table and he's upset?
Yeah, he was frustrated.
It sounded to me like he wanted Cade to get more respect, like as if like it's our earlier conversation combo. If LeBron gets angry and starts yelling at refs like that, he gets leeway, right? If Luka does that,
I saw a game this year. I think they actually came back in the second half. Forgot which game it was. Luka literally yelled at the ref every single play of the second quarter.
Right. Yeah.
Hard. It wasn't like a light yell. He was screaming at them, and he won't get a tech,
So, right. And especially if he already had one, right?
Yeah.
And then so he gets the one, and then, okay, generally it's like, hey, you're not going to get thrown out of the game. You are LeBron. You are whatever. And Cade, like I was saying earlier, and that connects to this part of the conversation, is that he's not that guy. But Bert Bickerstaff seemed to be, livid about. I'm interpreting what he said. I don't know if that's everyone agrees with this, but it felt like that was part of his upsettedness, was that he's not getting that respect, and we're winning now, and Cade is scoring all these points. He's doing so well. He should be able to have that argument with them and not do it. Now that said, in Cade's mind, he probably thought he was justified to say what he said before the first technical foul, which was, you F this whole thing up, and I don't know. I don't know how that all plays in, but it's
I interpreted Bickerstaff's comments the same way that you did, that basically what's good for one superstar is not good for anybody on our team. They're not treated the same way. That was his sentiment that he was trying to convey, in my opinion. I think that's what he was trying to convey. And so, whether you think he's that guy or not, I'm never going to say that people get preferential treatment, even though there are things that make it look obvious that yes, they do. Like the things you guys just said about LeBron or Luka or this, that, and the other, right? All I can say is I wish everybody on the court was able to control their emotions and not argue every play or not argue with those things. But I understand, as a former player, that in the heat of the moment, you're going to be upset about some things, right? And let's be honest, even though the rule book talks about profanity as being a technical foul, if you guys had, if all of us had access to everything that is said on the court in an NBA game, you would know that they rarely penalize profanity unless it's directed at an official, right?
Even not sometimes.
Sometimes they let it go if it's not yelled where everybody can hear it, or if it's just something under their breath or this, that, and other. A lot of people don't believe this, but the refs do not want to make this about themselves. They understand the fans didn't come to see them. They didn't pay to come see them. They try to stay out of it.
Can you speak for every ref when you say that? I'd say most refs.
Yeah, I would say most refs. I can't say everyone, but I
think sometimes that's a player's issue with refs. They feel like they're making it about them. I've heard that complaint before.
Well, yeah, of course. And you got to remember, though, that they're coming at it from a different perspective, right? As a player, there's going to be things that you think need to be called in the game. You're not watching the same thing that the ref is watching, though. So you don't know if it was legitimately a right call or a wrong no call or whatever. But you're going to advocate for your team, especially if you feel like you've been slighted and not gotten fouls called in your favor for a large chunk of the game. Then when you see something on the other end, you're gonna naturally think that they're against you, or that they're trying to make it about themselves when they give a technical foul for you arguing that. So, but all I know is, for the most part, every NBA ref I know, they understand that the game is not about them. They don't want it to be about them. They don't want to be the spotlight, but they have to handle things in accordance with the rules and the criteria, respect for the game guidelines that the league sets. And once that threshold is hit, it's kind of a no turning back situation. They can bend, and then when they break, the dam breaks loose, and then you're going to get what you get.
Yeah. And by the way, I think what's going on, it wasn't covered very well on either feed, but it looks like Kade gets the first tech. Then Schroeder keeps arguing, and they give him a tech. And that, I believe, is then what Kade got upset about for that part, was like, why are you doing another tech? Da, da, da. And then that was it. So, and
Bickerstaff had already gotten a technical foul earlier in that same period in the third quarter, right?
Who did?
Coach Bickerstaff. He had already gotten a technical foul earlier in the third period as well. So it was kind of the dam is about to break, and it finally broke on this play. And then there's like 3 technical fouls, and an ejection, and, of Cade, and, then you got to adjudicate all that with the free throws and so on and so forth. But it was the start of that play that caused the dam to break, was adjudicated properly, even though it was awkward.
Right.
And here's the thing, on that loose ball, once it was touched away, they stopped it immediately to call the loose ball foul. But you need to stop it there too to review it, because you got a player on the floor and a loose ball. You don't want him to get stepped on, stuff like that. So
no, I agree. And again, this clearly had been brewing from a while up until that point. So I don't think it was necessarily the fact that like they did a hostile act review and then wiped it off. For a second there, I thought they called the hostile act because they weren't sure about the loose ball foul. And like he's like, well, let me just kind of, or no, well. No, okay. What I had originally thought was he's on the ground that long. Let's just call it just to make sure, right, that I didn't miss anything, right? And I think that's what you said earlier, right?
Gotcha. Yeah, something along those lines. But they did observe the loose ball foul there and call it, so that they can go review for the hostile act and then keep the loose ball foul.
Yeah.
And so that's what they did when they saw there was
a huge chunk of time, 10 seconds in between the potential hostile act and then the loose ball foul. They can still do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's triggering sometimes, right? Where they're like, this is delay, when it really, they're just being, they're just dotting all the I's and crossing their T's and wanting to make sure they get it right, which is, I think, the whole point. And they got it right. You're saying they got it right. It's clear they got it right. And yet here we are, and everyone's thrown up their hands saying, here's an example of like, they don't know what they're doing. It's wrong. And it's like, no. They actually, this is a reasoned, well thought out way of getting this done. And unfortunately, Cade, lost his marbles a little bit. And so did Schroeder, who are both, Schroeder's a guy who, he'll get in the referee's face, and he definitely won't get the kind of respect that other, more prominent players will get in the league.
Well, and back to that play too. The reason they let it go while Dort was on the floor and didn't immediately stop play is so in the NBA you have to call a timeout if you have an injured player. They don't just stop play for the injured player like in other leagues. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it's a potential safety concern, that team has to request a timeout and be granted it. But they let it play out also because they're not sure if it was a hostile act, and if they stop play to review for a hostile act, they're disadvantaging the team from potentially being able to score when there may not have been a hostile act. You know what I mean? So you let the play out, then you have the loose ball foul, and you stop play to also review for the hostile act.
Right.
That they handled that correctly. It's just a weird play and sequence of events right there.
Yeah.
And then obviously that's when the dam broke, and everything started to really, really go downhill for Detroit.
Absolutely. Well, Chip, I can't thank you. That was awesome. I can't thank you enough for breaking that down for us and really giving us the details. And I hope if two people can understand this, and tamp down, some of the Pistons fans, then it'll be a success. One person at a time. I think you and I, when we're engaging people on Twitter, are that's all we're trying to do, right? Is figure out a way to get this explained so that the people understand what the rules are and what the referee's job is. And I think that's not easy, but I'm worried. I'm worried that it's growing, the anger, and there's some weird thing going on right now about the league and the NBA and the refs. And it's definitely not a good look when the players are calling out like the specific referees, which they've been doing a little bit. I don't know if you've seen it bubbling up. It's just I think that there probably needs to be some sort of intervention here, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that we're probably going to see something eventually. I'm not saying I have insider information on this about what the league is looking to do, but I'm saying I would expect something to be done in addition to like fines and stuff like that. I had a discussion with somebody the other day. They were talking about refs need in-game accountability, which is an interesting concept. And I'm like, what would that even look like? Because they're like, players and coaches are in-game accountable, but the refs hold them accountable. But nobody holds refs accountable for in-game mistakes. And I'm like, well, what would that look like? But it's an interesting discussion to think about. It's like, obviously you wouldn't have a sub for the referee, and then obviously we have things in place right now that try to limit those mistakes because we are human. You have instant replay and coaches challenges. You know what I mean?
Last minute report. That is exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah, but they're talking about in game. So just like a coach can get a technical foul from a ref, they think there should be a penalty for the referee for messing up something in game, which I'm not even sure what that would look like. But I don't know any other. The biggest penalty in my mind is losing out on money because you made a mistake. You know what I mean? And so that's what referees do in the NBA is they're held accountable after the game.
Right.
I just know that even the basis of that discussion, there's that thing festering that you're talking about, and it's not just with players in the game and coaches in the game. It's with fans who are watching the game as well. And listen, I get some of their frustration because if I was in their situation, and I'm not saying I'm better than them at all, I even empathize where if they did, you don't know what you don't know sometimes, right? So if I had their level of knowledge on the rules and I see a play a certain way, and had their knowledge of officiating, then I would probably be upset too in many instances. So I try to be empathetic with their, with what they're trying to say. But then there's other things where I'm like, okay, you have a point on this, but then there's a lot of other things I'm like, man, that person's at fault. You can't blame the referee for this. And then like you said before I hopped on, if you don't like the rules, change the rules. But until the rules are changed, whether it be on those SGA plays or those Luka plays where they veer in front, stop, and the guy hits him behind, like we talked about, or SGA where they consider him foul baiting on plays that are actually defensive fouls because they can't stop reaching in on him. Like those are things where I understand you don't like it, but until the rule changes, they have to officiate it this way.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Chip. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you soon.
Good to see you, man. Combo, good to see you too, buddy.
Good to see you. Talk
you on the playoffs, hopefully.
Yes, sir.
All right. See you, man.
And also, when we're talking about sometimes in the refs, when the player on a clear foul, it starts to complain very vociferously. And that just damages the relationship between the players and the refs because the ref saw it, the player knows it, and now you're just kind of getting the crowd whipped up, right, in a boisterous way against the ref, for no reason because you fouled them, and that stuff is frustrating. Of course, I got in trouble because I used an example of I think it was Isaiah Joe's shot, and somebody on the Celtics fouled him. But, I didn't see it in the first time through. He got a fingertip on the ball just before he completely nailed him on the forearm. And, Ronnie and both Chip agreed that, once you block the ball like that, even if it's a frame or two of video, the rest of the contact you make, if it's illegal, it ends up being incidental and not a call. So the guy that was arguing on the Celtics might have had a point. Like Torrey Craig, I think, might have had a point when I kind of said he didn't have a point. So anyway, let's get to our super chat. So sorry, Casa, but I hope you're still around. They ask, I forgot to add a message in super chat, but what's your take on OKC and the Clippers in a playoff series with a healthy Norman Powell? What do you think, Combo, about this matchup?
I think it's a long series, but OKC is just so good defensively, and they'll have the best player on the court. I think OKC would win. But it'd be fun to watch James Harden. Who doesn't get enough credit with the Clippers? Zubac. I feel like he's one of their most valuable players, and he's been playing really well. And obviously healthy Norman would be great. He's played at all-star level this year. So, I think OKC would win in maybe 6 or 7. I think it'd be a good series.
Well,
it'd be a great coaching matchup too. Ty Lue, Dana Galt. Yeah,
Dagnall. I'm not even sure. We got to see Dagnall in another series. I want to see him again do adjustments and see just exactly how they're going to end up playing, and then his value. Obviously, we know what Lou's value is, which is pretty high, and he's proven it over a bunch of different years.
Don't you think we know enough about these teams? Like the playoffs should just start now.
Yeah, we're probably getting. This is always the dog days, right? The last 15 games. We're kind of just let's get there already. So we're getting close. But a team like the Warriors is surging to the point where, do they have a shot at getting to the 5th spot? Let's look right now. They're things are moving around. The Lakers with LeBron, they were on their way to the 2nd seed, and now they're and they're still right there. But the Warriors are 2.5 games behind the Lakers and for 5th, and then 3.5 behind Memphis for 4th. So they're in that mix, with not a lot of games left, but with Jimmy out there. I got to do that video too coming up, so stay tuned for a Warriors video. But anyway, so let's talk about Harden. We have a resurgence. They've won 6 of 7. And I was funny. I went to a game like last month, and I was excited about seeing how Harden is kind of still doing Harden things, and people were sort of not aware of it. And at that moment, he was doing fine. The Clippers were doing fine. But like since then, pretty much after I started talking about it to the people with the Clippers, he's gone on a bit of a tear. Let me just share with you his stats.
I think he's averaging like 30 and 8 over the past 8.
That's right. At last seven games, he's averaging 30.1 points a game on 47.2% field goal. He's scorching at 41.4 on threes, and he's taking exactly 10 a game.
Ooh, 41% on 10 is ridiculous.
Ridiculous. And they're the step back threes to his right, like he is always do. He's back doing those, man. It's beautiful. And 9.3 assists per game. And I can guarantee you half of those are probably threes. So he's generating a ton of points, and him and Kawhi are playing off each other pretty nicely. And they're getting actions where Kawhi will screen for him, or Kawhi coming around a curl on his own, and James can hit him on good passes. So the only thing you see from Harden that's sort of like indicative of his age now is that he'll go to the basket and he'll kind of struggle with the trees and struggle.
He had a nice little dunk in his 50-point game, I saw.
Okay. Yeah. So every once in a while, with enough room, he can do it. But you can see him, struggling a little bit when there's a little bit of a bump here. He's not going to get off of that right foot as hard as he used to, or as strong as he used to. But he's so crafty that he can still get people faked up in the air, get him off balance on his own with fakes, and then either hit him or hit a pass for a layup or a three. So we're getting some pretty serious vintage Harden out here.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to one friend who coaches in the NBA, and he thinks he's seriously underrated and plays like an MVP at this point. He's playing at an MVP level. So
yeah,
it's and he also told me he does a lot of Luka things on the court, which I found interesting as well.
Yeah, let's take a quick break of that one and talk about DeAndre Morris' super chat, because we want to make sure I get this one in here before we get over the show. But DeAndre says, turns out LeBron is important to the Lakers, LOL. They won. They looked pretty good last night. Was it last night I was watching? Yeah. Against the Suns. Is that who they played?
Luka was talking smack to Kade, I saw.
Yeah, he was. And Kade was not, responding. I mean, he played well, but there was a moment there where Kade was guarding Luka and then sort of glitched and didn't follow him. And he went to the 3-point line and hit a left wing three wide open. And so the Suns are a mess, man. They don't play well. Kade has now gotten into it with Budenholzer twice in the last several weeks. Did you see?
Also, by the way, not to get off the Lakers and the Suns, you saw Josh Harden Tibbs kind of had the same thing going on against the Warriors.
Yes. That was rooted in minutes and playing time, I think, right?
No. You're kind of mixing it all up, but there is some truth because Mikal complained to Tibbs about minutes. Right. And then Josh Hart had an argument with the bench that we don't know what it was really.
We don't know what that is. Interesting. Yeah. Right. Like if Josh Hart is the guy that's getting into it with the coach, like something's really up, right?
And also, how about Mikal, the NBA Iron Man, complaining about minutes?
Right. And
then
that
means something too.
Winner, right. On top of that one. So, right.
Say that again.
And he hits a game winner.
Yes,
on top of all that as well. In his 42nd minute of the game, I think was whatever he was playing.
Well, yeah, it was overtime, but yeah.
It was overtime, right. So at any rate, So we're seeing the Suns. We don't have to spend too much time on it. And I was thinking about doing a video, but it's like it just would be so negative. I don't think I'd really want to delve into that. But I wouldn't imagine. So we know that KD is gone after this year, and so that might be the only thing that keeps Budenholzer in his job. But I would imagine he might not last either, unfortunately, with the way things are going. So
I mean, they just got rid of their coach from last year. If you blow it up, you get rid of the coach too after blowing it up?
That's probably what blowing it up. I mean, right. That's what blowing it up is.
Well, no, they just got rid of the coach thinking it was the coach's fault that he couldn't make this superstar trio work. We bring in a new coach. The superstar trio still doesn't work. So I don't know. He might be able to stay, I'm thinking.
Yeah, maybe in that context. We'll see.
Yeah.
And it's never fun to have to see coach, not be able to coach like that. But Budenholzer's been struggling a little bit
maybe Jeff Van Gundy will get a chance.
Yeah, right. He's playing. Well, he's the assistant coach right now with the Clippers, and so he's clearly back in the mix.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. I'd like to see him get a head coach job. That'd be a throwback.
It would be a throwback for sure. I wonder. I mean, it was funny on Twitter. I was talking to somebody else about shooting, and man, they were spitting out the throwback of the throwbacks about loading and getting your butt down and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, and no dipping on even on a hop. I'm like, so they're still out there. People are still out there that have learned stuff from a long time ago and haven't really realized it. Like the game has gotten, has changed. But yes, LeBron at 40 it's really. It's nothing short of just amazing and impressive what he's been able to do. And he's been playing defense, and so has Luka. Like whatever this alchemy is that's going on, they both have been so active defensively, which they hadn't been. And that explains why they went from a 21st ranked defense with AD there, and then he leaves, and then they get so much better defensively. I mean, they must be pushing each other in some weird way to show off on that end, show out on that end as well. So, and it just shows you, like, if they can get that from LeBron, then all of a sudden they're title contenders, like we talked about last time.
I guess it's interesting. Everybody always talks about rim protection, but maybe just versatility and point of attack defense could be just as important,
It is. Well, it's interesting. Oh, absolutely, a point of attack. Because you can limit the amount of rim defense you need.
Right. Like if you get 80's not there anymore, right? Obviously your rim defense probably won't be as good. But if you have like 5 versatile defenders guarding the perimeter, always moving, always active, always talking, that could work. It's different, but it could also work.
Oh, I got one better for you. You get more bang for your buck if you just get your rotations down properly.
Yeah.
So we saw a game winner with Washington against Denver on a skip to the corner, and like people were all discussing like whose rotation it was, what it was, and it was Murray. But at any rate, the more times you successfully rotate and X out properly and get to the shooters the right way, the more you'll win. Like that's not without question. And certain teams are really good at working on that every day or as much as they can in practice. Other teams are not, and you can see breakdowns all the time. And there are breakdowns all the time, right? Defensively, trying to guard and stay in front of the ball is virtually impossible against a lot of these players. So really it is okay, how the rotation is going to be. And then, blocking shots is good, but how many times does a guy block a shot? Twice a game, right?
Yeah, I mean, changing shots is so important. Just
all right. So let's say they change 8 shots, they block 2. All right, let's be generous. Let's say it's 10 shots, right? But they're going to shoot 70 shots in a game. It's not a huge percentage, but that meanwhile, if you get your rotations down and you're contesting those threes that are not all of a sudden not so open anymore, that's probably where you can get wring the most out of that. We have let's get to another super chat before we get out of the show. Alan Tran asks, the Warriors, and thanks, Alan, great to see you as always. The Warriors achieved their 2 lifetime goals: Steph, Jimmy, and Dre for the now, JK, Pods, Moody, Post, and a small amount of picks for the future.
Wait, how about Kuminga? Oh yeah, JK, got you.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, but this was always the thing. Like the last championship they won, they kept 2 timelines. That was the big narrative. They have 2 timelines. Can it work? And it worked. And they kept the guys now. So it's still working.
Well, I mean, the punch derailed everything, right?
And it seems like they're back from that somewhat. To some effect.
Listen, Podziemski's it's a solid player, Now, of the JK, Pods, Moody, Post, like someone else needs to step into that void. Steph is
Moody was really good versus the Knicks.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know at this point if Moody could be that guy, maybe, but we're talking about you need to have like top 5, top 6.
Well, Moody could be 3-and-D. He could be a guy that will like give you a lot of minutes, and he's a
winning
player.
You got to anchor that team with JK Kuminga could probably get into the 20 a game scoring as well.
Could he become as good as Andrew Wiggins at some point?
I think he could. That's probably the ceiling.
Yeah.
Which is a high ceiling. That's really good. I haven't. By the way, if you ask him, he'll tell you. He'll be a top 5 in the league. I think that's what his trajectory wants to be. It'll be amazing to see they can do that. It'll be a great story. As of now, I think we just got to see him get back from his injury. He's been out for a long time, and figure get back into the flow. And it's been a little up and down, but looking pretty good. And certainly when you put him in the role he has now underneath Jimmy and Steph, like that's the role he needs to be in, right? And so you'll see a lot better. So now the Warriors are something can offer pretty almost everybody in the league something in a playoff series.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it's going to be interesting with the Lakers better now, Warriors better now. It's going to be fun, and then you got the young teams like OKC.
Yeah,
It's going to be fun.
So I
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this before we get out of here.
What's that?
Let me ask you this before we get out of here.
Yeah, go.
Who would win in a 7-game series, the Celtics or the Cavs?
The Cavs.
Really?
I'm gonna light it on fire, man. I'm gonna say the Cavs look too good for me.
Even with a healthy Porzingis.
I guess that's always been the thing, and maybe he won't even be healthy. But let's just pretend he is healthy. Then it's a 7-game series, and the Cavs will be home, which will help. I don't know. There's something lacking about the Celtics this year that I don't like, especially like the way they run their offense. And they're so good. I mean, it's silly to even complain about their offense, and I bet you their offense is what, number 1, number 2 in the league. Let's see here. But I don't know. It's just something. It's just, and it could just be aesthetics to me, or the way it looks. But they're 3rd in the league right now, just barely behind the Nuggets.
Who's number 1?
Cavs.
Oh, okay.
And they're number 1 by a couple points. Like, that's a nice margin they have. And then the Cavs are 7th in defensive rating, which I think is a little bit low. I think they were higher than that earlier, and the Celtics were 5th. So they're both like right in the title contention. It'll be an amazing series, and I'm really looking forward to that. So please let us get that. And then in the East might not have as many series that are be amazing, but certainly the West will be packed, and that will hopefully we can kind of galvanize over this. We won't have any issues with the refereeing and all that anger and all that stuff, and we can get back to just epic, exciting games back and forth.
Yeah, I think it'll be good playoffs. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, awesome stuff. Great show. And anything else you want to plug before we go?
Combos Court should have an episode out today talking St. John's basketball.
Ooh. Now, my boss at Wisconsin was Stu Jackson, and Stu was Rick Pitino's right-hand man for those years in Providence when he was.
Pitino might be, he's one of the greatest coaches to ever live.
Yeah. I mean, the only problem I have is that he also represents an era gone by where, and he's not like the Bobby Knight, but he does have a little bit of that anger and disgust that he uses. But you can't argue with the results on that one. And
yeah,
better at that than like Knight ever was, which is great.
Also, guys like Knight, guys like Dean Smith, John Wooden, they stayed in one spot and won a lot. Yeah. I mean, Pitino goes everywhere and wins. Yeah, and wins and changes programs around. And
had to go through the forest and the trees and all sorts of obstacles to get back to where he is. So it's great to see. It's a good story. So what I was first introduced to at the high level, the D1 level, was basically Pitino's the way he runs his program was how Stu Jackson was doing it. And even to this day, there's like the way they do it seems to be exactly the way you're supposed to do it. And I still don't see D1 play programs running it that way. And this is in the 90s they were doing it.
So they have a more of an emphasis on player development, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this was back from and he was basing it in the early 90s, late 80s. They were doing this. So it just boggles my mind that like not everyone has taken that template and then even pushed it farther into the individual.
Is it a fair question to ask if he's the greatest basketball coach ever?
Oh, wow. And I don't think he is, because there's just, that's tough, man. How do you get over Wooden? How do you get over, Red Auerbach? How do you get over?
Kind of what I was talking about. Like, he just goes everywhere and it's a Pitino effect and they win,
It's tough. I mean, it's tough. There's a narrative in that too, a media thing that has to happen, right, to kind of take hold. So we shall see. But interestingly enough, like guys like Phil, Pop, it doesn't sound like Pop's going to come back. I worry he'll kind of drift.
Okay. Is Pitino the best coach in New York? Is he better than Thibodeau? Is he better than Jordy Fernandez?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah. All right. Well, there's your answer. You wanted an answer? I give you an answer. Yes.
That was good. That was good stuff at the end right there. That's high level.
Fire. All right. Well, thanks so much, Combo. Thank you all for the super chats. Really appreciate it. Great show. Great crowd out here today. Thank you, Chip, out there for being part of the show. And don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel. We're a conversation. You win? Are you in, Combo?